Hello and welcome. Technical difficulties aside, this is TMC Live Nullsec Power Hour, featuring myself, Marc Scaurus, a guy that's largely irrelevant these days, Darius Johnson, and the current CEO of Goonswarm, the Mittani. We're going to be talking about Nullsec in general, the news of the day, and of course, right now with a giant war going on in Fountain, we'll be talking a little bit about that. And then a little bit later, we'll be taking your questions. But first, we'll do a quick introduction. We'll start off with Darius Johnson, former CEO of Goonswarm and formerly CCP Srigs. He left CCP to move back to the land of freedom to be an intern for the Mittani.com. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, thank you very much. Living the dream, man.
Living the dream?
Yeah.
Well, you're not unemployed technically yet, right? So that's the dream.
I'm trying to work up to it. Like, I figure I'll start out with a nice job and income and everything, and then just throw it all away to run a website or something.
I'm informed that it's a good plan to do that. To just throw away your career and do a dumb website.
Just toss it all away. Years and years of schooling, just whoosh.
It gives you a lot of time to come up with nice short musical intros for your internet talk show. It's like a full 7 minutes.
Hey, last minute prep, right? Okay, so I am also, of course, joined by the Mittani.
Hello.
If no one's seen his face before, and the thing that's hanging off the edge of it there, that's him. And I don't think he really needs that much of an introduction, but if you want, you can go for it. Or you drink beer. That's cool.
I can drink beer. It's a spotted cow. It's not a Jaeger bomb, so
we should be okay.
Should be all right. Everybody should be safe. I'll try not to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm gonna leave that over to Darius Johnson to hurt people's feelings today.
Oh.
Darius Johnson, he's a nice guy. I don't know.
Yeah.
He's an angry ball of New Jersey rage. We need to get, speaking of rage, we should get one of these talk shows going with Grath and Sean together.
Yeah.
DJ and Grath together in one Skype. What could possibly go wrong?
Somebody might drive 12 blocks and shove my microphone up my ass.
Yep.
All right, so we should probably actually
talk about
do
something.
The show. Yeah, we should.
Yeah.
I mean, I apologize, guys. This is the first time we've done this. We basically decided we should get off our asses.
This is amazing. Stop it. Okay.
Okay.
This is
Stop apologizing.
Yeah, we're gonna start doing some.
Who is Marc Scaurus? Somebody in the stream is asking. Who the hell are you, Marc?
Yeah, you didn't intro yourself.
Yeah.
How do people not know who I am? These two guys are schmucks. How do you not know who I am? I'm just a dude. I am a low-sec pirate, and I've of no account at all. So you don't have to worry about that. I'm here to moderate these two idiots. So we're going to start off with some nullsec news. Up in the northeast, we have Solar and N3 going at it. Why don't you tell us a bit about that, the Mittani?
All right, I guess we're going to go quadrant by quadrant here. So the northeastern front is kind of an interesting place right now. N3 is away from home. They had, they're mostly deployed down to Fountain. There was recently a soft drop of Cult of War, which was a relatively small alliance up in the northeast, as well as the rather large N3 Noli Secunda Citizens soft drop with 211 systems going dark last week due to a defector, walk-in, disgruntled director, whatever you want to call them. So basically what you're seeing there, if you keep an eye on Solar Fleet and their SOV gains in Dotlan, is that Maktep, or Master in Russian, is running around and trying to retake cache, not catch, cache, up by N's mother, and is making pretty steady gains. NC Dot and N3 have been bouncing to the northeast to try to defend against that periodically. It's just been kind of one of those long simmering conflicts. Ever since Solar Fleet lost their space, we've been kind of wondering when Master would make his return, and apparently Solar and RA and their allies are now going for it. So keep an eye on Solar Fleet, keep an eye on the defensive moves that N3 makes up there, and that's most of the action in the northeast right now.
I just want to cut it in. That was a really good fucking Russian accent, buddy. That was
Well,
great.
it's
Can we
not
hear that
me.
again?
It's Master. It's
Yeah.
not me. It's all. It's
So it's more like Icelandic.
Yeah, funny that my wife is learning Russian actually. So
Maybe you should ever teach you.
That'd be useful in the future if you could
Wow.
if you could actually.
First burn across the plate of the show, and we're only 5 minutes in. Okay. All right.
People are
My,
yeah.
my ego might be able to handle this. I don't know. We'll see how this goes.
So I believe more Russian fun, is it, in the southeast? Dinner Squadron versus Darkness of Despair.
That's right. Dinner Squadron is, for those of you who haven't been paying attention to the silly names that people pick for their coalitions, hey, it could be worse. It could be like the Clusterfuck or some other sort of stupid throwaway name. Dinner Squadron is the ex-HBC people that Test basically told to go fuck themselves when they seceded from the Southeast. And so you have Dinner Squadron with the Initiative, Wall Traipers, Freezes, Insidious, something or other, and basically all of the other HBC guys who weren't Test and Tribe. And they've been fighting against Darkness of Despair, which is a sort of, I don't want to say that they're a respawn of Against All Authorities, because they're more like a combination of all of the ethnic Russian alliances that were part of several entities, like Gypsy Band. Some of them were from RA, some of them were from Against All Authorities. Got together with basically no English-speaking people at all, and have been making moves on Esoteria. And so if you take a look at Esoteria and Catch, there's been a lot of action between Darkness of Despair and the Initiative. Previously speaking, there had been incursions from the Dinner Squadron into from Paragon Soul towards Period Basis, which is where you see Tribe. There had been scuffles there, but as the offensive from Darkness of Despair heats up, it looks right now like Dinner Squadron is on the back foot. We hope to have more reportage about this on TMC, because we just hired Freeze, who is the leader of a Dinner Squadron alliance and sort of shares the title of leader of that coalition with Sword Dragon and Sister Bliss. It's sort of hazy as to who's in charge of what. So we should be getting more detailed reports, hopefully in the next week or so.
Why don't you bring up the infographic you have for that?
The infographic I have for that?
The animated
That'd be
map
amazing.
that shows everything.
You just had it up. I don't know.
Show everyone the moving map that you were using.
The amazing map that I had just then that I don't
You were
have
just
right.
showing it to us.
All right, he's shy. Okay, so
That's just for me. That's just
just for
GIA
you.
only.
is that part of your like presidential morning brief?
It is. Like I get the it's like the Matrix. Like I've got all these screens up, and then just all these reports come down, and I don't show them to anybody because I'm a dick.
It's about par for the course.
That is.
Speaking of, not really. 401k has been active in Venal, trying to take away some tech moons, I guess, because that's relevant. Revenant. Sorry, I misspoke.
That's
And then-
Revenant. That's Revenant.
And
Everything is Revenant in this day and age, even a tech moon.
yes, and also, but some R64s as well. What's going on with that?
Well, the first couple weeks of the Fountain War saw Black Legion working together with 401k and sort of leading 401k around. When Black Legion was hired by the CFC, 401k was left on their own. There was a lot of bitterness. Some of their internal forum threads were leaked on Kugutsuman, showing a lot of ranting about, mean Black Legion, we don't like you. How dare you leave us alone? But the truth is that most of Venal is gone as far as R64s and tech moons go. Tech moons are valueless. Venal as a region isn't as valuable as it used to be. And the CFC had a lot of trouble dealing with 401k for a while. They were reinforcing Razor CSAAs up in Tenal and had to bounce back north quite a few times over the last few weeks. But then Mr. V got kind of annoyed with 401k, and the other day they lost like 30 billion in a fairly one-sided fight along with 5 dreadnoughts. And then I think it was today or yesterday, 401k has announced that they're going to do a deployment away from Venal. But that's not to say that the CFC hasn't lost most of their holdings in Venal to either Black Legion or to 401k. So we'll see how that goes.
Pretty fair. And then obviously the thing that everyone's really talking about at this point is the Fountain War. Somewhat understandably, how is that going? Things weren't going well, it seemed, for a little bit there.
Things were things could have been better in the early days of the war. I mean, the CFC went into Fountain with doctrines which were immediately outdated by the Odyssey patch. And so we went in there with Tengus and Tempest Fleet issues. Tempest Fleet issues are a battleship doctrine designed to fight one-on-one, one battleship fleet against another battleship fleet, which doesn't really work when you're in a 2,000-man fuckfest, basically, which is what most of the Fountain battles have been. And it takes a long time to supply an alliance or a coalition as big as the CFC. So it was a while before the new CFC doctrines went online with the Baltec fleets, as they're called, the mostly Megathron, Oneris doctrines. But since then, things have really kind of turned around. Though, of course, I'll be accused of spinning because I lead Goonswarm, and
Of course,
we are
everything
we are
that comes out of your mouth is spin. What are you talking
spinning like a tornado. But even the Nulli Secunda Alliance update, which we're going to be publishing tomorrow on TMC at our first billing, acknowledges that numbers are really down for test across the board. Basically, the defensive Fountain is primarily led by NC Dot with N3 helping, and when they're not around to defend the region, bad things happen. So the CFC has taken the first constellation into Fountain. It's going slowly. It's a siege and punt war, pretty similar, I think, to Tribute, where also the CFC was fighting NC Dot and to a lesser extent Nulli Secunda. So sort of, I guess you'd say same shit, different region.
Fair enough. Now, obviously, this is the first show that we're doing for Nullsec News, and lots of things have happened. One of the things that stood out to me as not being a Nullsec guy, but it seemed kind of odd, was when Test decided to basically stage out of lowsec at the onset of the war. Do you think that that's helped or hindered them so far in the war, as objectively as you can possibly
As objectively
commentate?
as I can get?
Yeah.
Well, excuse me. Putting on my video game journalist hat rather
He just
than
made
my
dick fingers.
video game journalist hat rather than my Internet Spaceship Alliance leader hat. I'll talk instead about what Test motivations were for going to Quran, which is the system they're staging in. They were worried that we would do a day one hell camp. A hell camp, for people who don't know much about Nullsec, is when you camp an entire alliance that's staging into a place, into that system. You bubble that one system, that one station that they're in. You don't let them out. Famous hell camps have been 6 VDT, which is when the CFC and Test helped take Fountain originally, camping IT Alliance into that station for a week. Then they broke, and that was the end of that. Another one, of course, was in Delve 2, the famous PR Dash Hell Camp, which lasted for 31 days straight and broke the alliance that was formerly known as Band of Brothers. So Test's leadership was afraid of getting bubbled into a station, and they thought that the CFC, when they invaded, was going to go for an immediate hell camp. Which is not done, but that's what they were afraid of. And so they went to lowsec where they couldn't be bubbled instead. And they moved Tribe into Quran as well, which has been very awkward for Tribe because Tribe normally is based out of period basis. And as a result, Test has had difficulty defending their moons in Delve, and they're focusing on Fountain, but they're having difficulty defending their moons and their assets in Delve and in period basis, both for Test and Tribe respectively, and have lost a lot of them as a result. So I don't think it was the wisest move, but I'm spinning like a tornado because I'm a bad man.
Obviously, never not spin. What
do you suppose Blarf smells like? It seems to be a topic in the chat.
In the chat, are people talking about Blarf? Well, from what I hear Blarf is a furry.
That's what it says.
No,
It
I mean,
also
I
says
don't
he
judge.
smells like Astroglide body odor, which I think
Okay.
it's a bizarre combination.
Is that what furries smell like? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
I don't smell furries. So
it's a fair guess. I don't know.
yeah.
Never been near the guy. I
Probably don't
Blarf
want
is
to be.
actually a funny dude because he's one of you is actually listening to this stream right now, and it's getting feedback into Skype. But Blarf is a fantastically ugly man. I mean, in real life, I've met him a couple times. He is a fantastically ugly human being, and yet if you look at his Facebook, he's at his college wherever he is, and he's in Wales or something, and he is just surrounded by gorgeous co-eds. I don't know what it is. Like he's got this kind of inverse confidence thing. Maybe you could tell us a little bit more about that, Darius.
It's
where you're
called
like really ugly, but you're really confident and get along well with people. How does that work?
It's just called college, man. Just called
Oh, okay.
college. I'm not gonna be like you and spend 3 hours going on a diatribe about how what you really have to do is fucking get a hot tub downtown, and then you go to goth clubs and invite people over to your hot tub. Because I remember this 3 hour fucking story, and boy howdy, what was that? Wasn't that 3 hours of you trying to tell fucking my homeboy Trisbic how to get laid?
Trisbic still hasn't gotten laid. Maybe he still hasn't gotten laid. Maybe you should have listened to my advice. I mean, I was trying to help. I was trying to help. I'm a helper.
It was like 5 pages of text, and if you hear it in your voice, it's like, well, what you have to do is get an apartment right downtown, and it has to have a jacuzzi, and then you go to the goth club, and then afterwards you invite everyone back to your house for an after party, and it's like sex, sex, sex. It was awesome.
Oh God.
Yeah, these talk shows are going to be
What?
popular. It's pretty much just going to be
These-
me getting my
no.
ego destroyed on live TV.
These are gonna be us getting kicked off of Twitch. Actually, I think.
I see it.
Pretty-
No, he's just talking about sex, sex, sex. What's wrong with that? I don't understand.
What am I not allowed to say?
At this point, more or less anything.
Oh.
Are we done with like the side commentary? Or
Yeah, I was just
do you have more?
Who's echoing?
Probably me. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's you. It's not me.
Yeah, there it went away. Whatever you did
Yeah.
made it go away.
Yeah, if you pause the Twitch stream,
Clearly, we have a fucking top-notch producer here.
Clearly.
this is a class act.
Well, no. See, this is what I get for all my hard work on TMC. And one day you can get a headset like this, Darius, if you work hard enough. Is this like a Logitech $30 piece of crap? And that's what I've gotten for all my hard work. So that's what's causing all the issues here.
Well, spend some time watching that movie UHF with Weird Al Yankovic and maybe learn a thing or two about running a production.
Oh my.
Amazing.
So I think we have some questions from the chat and from Twitter to go through.
I don't know that we want to repeat necessarily the questions from chat right now.
Well, why don't we start with the people who were prepared and like asked us questions on Twitter first, and then we can go to the chat questions.
Well, I actually do have one more question for you of my own, and that's kind of circling back to the beginning of the war again. You launched the invasion of Fountain, what was it, a day or two before going to E3?
Yeah.
Do you think basically putting yourself in that position explained a lot of the struggles that you had early on, or what do you think?
Well, that's kind of one of those when did you stop beating your wife questions, right? Because to say that
That's a
doing
good
that
question. As a follow-up, when did you stop eating your wife?
to answer the question about like the timing of the Fountain invasion with E3 implies that, you know, if I'm like, oh yeah, well it was a huge mistake for me to not be around, then it makes it sound like, you know, the invasion is all me, when in reality it's our FCs and our coordination group and our directors and our logistics people and the line goons who show up and do things. As a practical matter, my only real function in the alliance anyway is to keep directors from fighting with each other and like just be a peacemaker. I don't really do, I mean I do stuff, but it's not like, oh, I'm the mastermind and I'm, you know, puppet mastering everything or whatever.
Are you sure? Because I'm pretty sure that's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
No comment. So yeah, so I think that the biggest problem that we had in the invasion was like we invaded and then Odyssey happened and then the metagame completely changed in terms of fittings and in terms of what ships we were going in, and it just takes a while to. Was it a mistake to invade on the anniversary of D-Day just because it was a funny gimmick? Yes. If I could go back and do it again, would I have waited a couple of weeks? Yeah, absolutely. I would have waited for the meta to change, and we would have gone in there with Baltec fleets and Megathrons right from the beginning, and we wouldn't have had these wrenching supply problems that basically we were essentially unable to fight a pitched battle except for like bullshit Caracol fleets for the first couple weeks while we waited for the doctrines to get set up and imported properly. So yeah, hindsight is 2020. If we could have gone back and done it again, I would have waited until after E3. I think that was a huge mistake. But I think the silver lining is that the alliance really overcame, the coalition overcame my fuck up, and things have gone really, really well in the last couple weeks now that we sort of put out the fires and got over the doctrine situation. And yeah.
Not to toot my own horn or anything, but I was actually the one who fixed all that.
It was
Just throwing that out there.
It was actually Darius Johnson. He's the man responsible for turning the course of the war around.
I was like, hey, the Mittani, here's all these mistakes you're making.
Let me tell you.
Well, it was something that was important to me. It was something that was important to me. And when something's important to me, I prepare in advance and I write everything down and I have a list of things all prepared. Kind of like a radio show or something. And what I did was I had this list of things that you were doing wrong, and I brought it to you, and you then fixed the war.
Just handed me the list, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm nominally the CEO, but I'm just kind of taking orders from Darius here.
It was so easy. It was like you didn't have a 20-minute intro song or like feedback in microphones.
Things happened, all right, and I don't regret them. So I guess we're going to transition over to doing some Twitter questions I asked earlier today, the people in Tweet Fleet, and what nobody cares.
Somebody was asking in Twitch what I was drinking, and they were saying
irrelevant,
it was Glarus, and it's Spotted Cow. Spotted Cow is a very important beer in Wisconsin.
Sounds like some kind of fucking organic milk. What's the matter with
it? As opposed to inorganic milk.
Some sort of yoga recharge.
What kind of milk do you drink?
Does it make you stretchy?
Do you drink milk out of plastic or something?
No, I don't even drink
milk. Do your cows squeak? Like, how does this work?
The only reason you should be drinking milk is if there's vodka and Kahlua in it. That's it.
All right, I can see the point.
Wow.
You got me.
I don't even know at this point. Like,
and you thought you were going to be like hosting a talk show as opposed to just watching two animals take.
Well, I'm pretty bad at that, obviously. So I mean, like.
Well, I mean, I wasn't going to say anything.
We'll figure it out eventually. I'll get Cuz on Black Y'all to pen us a Mittani.com rap, and
I thought you were going to get it
recorded. No, I don't. I could maybe record it. I do have a little bit of what do they call it? I suppose I'll call it a rap drawl. I think I can rap a
rap drawl.
I could be an MC. It's short for Master of Ceremonies, and that's when you're a rapper.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I did.
It'll be my Magna Carta.
Let's put it.
You know what? Just keep talking because this is funny as shit.
Let's just fucking run some question. Let's do this. I'm gonna drink more. I'm gonna hope not to offend anybody. Darius is drinking more. I have a Tingu blanket. Quick shout out here to FCon, by the way. I was given this at FanFest by a guy named Adapine from Fidelis Constance, and it's a blanket with a Tingu on it. And I tried to get a green screen set up for this fucking talk show such that we would be all professional. And the green screen thing, kind of a pain in the ass. Tingu blanket, very happy with it. So thank you.
Why did he give you a blanket? Were you just sitting in the street cold?
And he just had a Tingu blanket ready. He's like, I just give these out to people. Like you look like a sad young man who's thrown his career away and has nothing to hope in life.
He was like,
have a blanket, have a Tingu blanket. There you go.
This is Iceland, so there's no homeless people. But you look at that fucking soul patch. Here's a blanket. It's close enough.
Your goatee is terrible. I'm so sorry. Here's a blanket. Try to cover it up. All right, let's do some questions.
All right, so here's actually a decent one that somebody just spoke in the chat. What was your reaction to the latest test State of the Alliance thing?
Oh, man.
That's
well,
what that stands for?
State
I didn't know what that stood for.
We call it State of the Union, but SOTG, but everybody else calls them State of the Alliance, so does. Well, it sure was a thing. It was.
That's great. That's fucking cogent analysis right there.
Definitely. Well, I mean, that's about all you can say. I mean, look, it was. Buddha comes on. He had to put the speech off 3 times. Actually, I think 4 times. He had to reschedule the speech. And, this is one of those tough situations because if people ask questions like this, it's like, where do I, at which point does it become me just shit talking, right? People would probably like to see me shit talk, but whatever.
Everybody likes everything you do, obviously. So I mean,
obviously, except when I hurt their precious feelings.
Wouldn't you if you were you?
So he gave the speech and basically said everything's going great, but please donate to our alliance. But we don't need you to donate because corps are donating already, and things are going great. Just show up in Fleet and we'll be fine. And then he says, like, I haven't been around in the last week, but just show up. And the last week to 9 days is really when things began to dramatically turn in the tide of the war with Z9PP and 3WE, and then some of the other things that have gone on since then. So, I mean, it wasn't the worst speech I've heard. I mean, Darius Johnson gave some really terrible speeches.
There were some really good, like, failures of ham-handed, like, you can do it, guys, rah 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 stuff in there too, though, that I really liked. It was pretty beautiful.
Yeah, they had that dude like sing. Not Chicken gave a song called "I Need a Hero," and they were spamming and jabber about how the song will win us the war. And I don't know.
That's worked out so far, right?
A day later, they like booted one of the FCs who's been doing a lot of work for them, a guy named Alpha Star Pilot, who is admittedly 15 years old. And there was this funny SoundCloud recording that was amusing, but too, not the kind of thing that we can actually run on TMC, where he basically flames out and gets recorded flaming out and saying why they're, in his opinion, as an FC, losing the war and not doing well. And his assessments pretty much lined up with my assessments, and then they proceeded to boot him from the alliance for saying these evil lies.
What was the problem with the recording? Why can't it air on TMC?
I guess we could, but I mean, I try to.
What's wrong with it? Was it racist?
No. I mean,
it's just generally terrible.
It's just a young FC having a meltdown.
Right.
Like if
I thought there was some rules. No, he said the N-word.
No, it would just seem petty.
I'm not saying he did.
Because it would be like, oh, here's Alpha Star Pilot, a 15-year-old kid having a meltdown, and he's saying mean things about Test, and if we ran it, then people would be like, oh my god, the Mittani.com is biased against Test, and even though like half our staff...
They say that anyways, I don't know.
They do say that anyways, but we try to not be Even News 24, so... Maybe Even News 24
that's not hard, though.
If it makes you feel better, you don't have to worry about getting sued for branding him a racist, because he does say he's a racist at the end, if you haven't
I didn't make it all. It's a 23-minute long
It's 23 minutes long?
Nah, yeah, it's at the end. It's at the end.
I'd link it in the... Actually, I should be able to link it in the channel. Because
there's another guy who's,
other people can't, but I can without the bot freaking out, so people can see.
In this case, we've had situations where people have said racist things, and people have said they've said racist things, and those people in turn turn into massive lawyers on various web forums and threaten to sue people and generally make an ass of themselves. In this particular case, we have a situation where the gentleman is clearly on the record as saying, I'm racist and I hate this particular ethnic group, and I think that's I'm not going to say it's admirable, but it's a pleasant change of pace, I think, from the usual posturing.
I don't.
Well, he is 15, so what can you do?
Yeah.
But
I sure hope that doesn't pop up somewhere else in his life somewhere later on.
I'm sure it wouldn't. It's the internet. Nobody knows what happens here.
TV. I mean, who knows how far that could go.
I think that admissions of racism are maybe the taking a picture of your dong on Twitter of the future. Someday this is gonna come back to haunt him.
All right, so we got some pretty interesting questions here in chat. Let me actually, Mark, why don't you
let's talk about a little bit about the Revenant, even though I mean it's not technically relevant to the discussion. It is big news that happened. And I don't know, maybe give your take on it. And speaking of meltdowns, I mean, Graf's SoundCloud is not bad. I mean, it's pretty good listening. He's quite mad. And
Graf is always mad. So
of course, I mean, he's a walking ball of rage.
That's true.
But in it, he said that you guys aren't getting a cent, and that's sanitizing it quite a lot. Do you think that that's the right move for these guys? Like, do you think that denying them reimbursements is a good move, or how would you handle that, I guess?
Well, I mean, that's a toughie because part of the reason why PL pilots, I think, are willing to throw their supers around and go on fishing missions is because they feel like they will get reimbursed, so they don't fear the loss. I think Grath's rage was understandable. There's kind of a cultural conflict within PL that Grath ranted about during that SoundCloud, where you have a lot of newer guard people from AAA and other alliances that aren't really meshing well with the old guard in terms of necessarily awareness, I guess he would say competence. People like Grath and Jeff Rader are like old school. But I don't know. I think the other thing is that reimbursing that's like what, 600 billion ISK, and one of them is like a 300 billion ISK novelty ship. So I might reimburse the regular ships. If I was in my sister's situation, I wouldn't reimburse that Revenant or anything. I would think that the Revenant would be completely worthless. I mean, it's literally a turd in space that costs 300 billion ISK. Like, here is your poop. Give me 300 billion ISK. No way.
Fair enough. So let's see. We have some general Twitter questions from earlier in the day. Speaking of,
Is that some new form of social media?
it is. It's a new thing. It's not been around long. I'm not sure. I thought you're on it, or is that some other?
I have fucking people who do that shit. I don't.
You have people who do that shit.
Yeah.
The most. Our intern has somebody to handle.
Our
social
intern
media.
has a helper to handle the social media problem.
When I walk into work, before I go into my giant office, I just fucking hand somebody a post-it note. I'm like, here's the login and password. Just say something nice today. Say something.
Tweet some things for me.
Yeah, say something to empower somebody.
Amazing.
Make somebody
like
feel
doing.
better about themselves.
I don't feel good about my Twitter account if it hasn't lifted somebody up in the day.
Is that how you measure like your day? Like you're not satisfied with the day until that happens, or
I like to pay it forward, man. I like to see happy faces.
Yeah.
That's what I live for.
you're a happy dude. So I mean,
That's what they say.
He is one of the happiest dudes I've met.
all right. So some more general nullsec questions until somebody in the chat asks something worthwhile.
Oh, I see how it is. I saw
How
some
many-
worthwhile questions that are like 500 words back, though. 500 lines back. So I don't know.
Repeat your questions if you like. In the meantime, a general nullsec question is: with the changes in Odyssey and those on the way, are industrialists becoming more important than null? And that's from Noisy Gamer on Twitter.
Industrialists will be important in nullsec when we stop having jump freighters.
Did you see? Was it him who wrote an article today that talked about how all the battleships that died this month took something like 6 years worth of total time to build?
That was Mina.
That was
not,
Mina?
not Noisy
That
Gamer.
was a really cool article. I like that.
Yeah, it was like that kind of stuff I don't really get my head around too well.
I'm
which is
sorry
why
for
I just had
unintentionally-
finance team.
Sorry for unintentionally pimping your site. Like that wasn't that was
Unintentionally.
completely not
Well,
on
you are the
purpose.
intern. You are the intern. That's what your unpaid internship is for, is to try to promote. But no, I mean the difficulty that we have had with people coming to the CFC and other alliances in nullsec that we've seen is that if you don't start your gameplay in nullsec like a newbie in Goonswarm or Test or what have you, a lot of times people will come in from HiSec with these attitudes about like industry, because HiSec has lots of people telling each other that industry is terribly important and it matters out in nullsec. But the question that you really have to ask yourself is, what do you bring to the alliance that a jump freighter service from JITA cannot provide? And if that's ships and ammo and local production, then you are literally less worthwhile than a jump freighter service from JITA. So I mean, large scale production or something like that you can't just jump freighter in from a hub, then great. But beyond that, I don't think Odyssey has made a damn bit of difference. We still, most major nullsec PvP alliances just import all their shit from JITA because there's people who are willing to sit there and work for just razor thin profit margins because they think their time is free. And you're not going to beat the kind of deal that you get from some puppy in HiSec who thinks that his time is free, churning out, Megathrons at a 0.05% profit margin. You can just buy the suckers and import them.
Just a caveat to that is that there is some level of necessary industry in nullsec related to capital and super capital production.
That is true.
And actually, what ends up happening is there's this wonderful kind of what was it called? The slave triangle, where they would trade molasses for whiskey or molasses.
Was
for
that the
rum.
Ivory Triangle? I don't know. I don't
remember. Whatever. It's just fucking history. Who needs it? But like, I think what I was trying to get at was that so the high-end minerals that are required for Tech 2 production are mined in 0.0. Those then get shipped back and sold in Empire, and then the production of those minerals occurs in Empire, and then the ships get shipped back out to 0.0 from and that's Nullsec's role in that particular part of the production chain. And the same thing from a capital and super capital perspective. Capitals and super capitals are largely used and built in Nullsec. That's the extent of industry. There's not a whole lot else going on out there.
And we wish that they'd fix it. I mean, like we've been like, ideally speaking, all aspects of the game would be useful.
You see it a little bit. You see it a little bit, not like with actual industry, like the old school industry as its own, like building ships and shit, but like with planetary interaction, it's definitely been incentivized to a degree where it's definitely more profitable to do these things in Nullsec than it is to do them in.
Yeah, PI is definitely a big improvement there. I just, the thing is, people have this traditional idea of how Nullsec should have local ship production, how that should matter. And, that died screaming in 2006 when Band of Brothers killed Ascendant Frontier. And they were a big industrial alliance and spent a lot of time talking about how their local ship production would overwhelm Band of Brothers. And, of course, that was bullshit because it's not about the ships, it's about the morale. And that was even before we had jump freighters. So, whatever. I think that's about all we can say about that.
Well, that kind of segues into another question from Argy in the chat, is what changes would you like to see for Sov Warfare, and I guess Sov in general?
Man, that's a toughie because we thought that we had a lot of changes that we wanted to get implemented for Sov during the bad old POS Warfare days. We would say POS Warfare is awful, whatever. Back in the day, you of course needed a tower on every moon, or 50%, slightly more than 50% of every moon towered in a system in order to claim Sov. So there's a lot of POS mechanics, a lot of logistics that meant that anybody who had config starbase could basically like nuke Sov in a system. There's more espionage in the game as a result, but there was also just an awful lot of tower shooting. So Dominion came around and they decided that they were going to minimize the amount of structure shooting by implementing Dominion Sov.
Just to cut in a little bit, how did that happen?
How did what happen? Them implementing Dominion?
I think it had something to do with us having a number of CSM members petition over and over again to change the system to do that.
That might be the case.
That was a lot of hard work on the part of a particular person.
I'm very sorry about the lack of credit that you got there, but
okay.
I'm not sure you want credit on Dominion. I don't know whether you want.
I don't know. The end result was different. I mean, what you were looking for was something that was better, and the real problem with it is nobody's ever defined what better is. What you do is you go and you say, the thing that I have sucks. I want something else. But you don't go, this is the perfect something else. And a lot of people's input into what that perfect something else was went into what it was that they created. But it just ultimately, at the end of the day, what many people were raging about was Sov sucks, Sov sucks, Sov sucks, Sov sucks. The moons, we need to get rid of the towers, we need to get rid of towers, we need to get rid of towers. And then once that occurred, everyone goes, this new, they liked it for like a week or two. And then everyone's like, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks. Which is kind of weird because from a developer perspective, I have to wonder if people don't look at that and go, well, what the fuck can we do with this? Because like how do you please people at this point? And I think that's particularly what people are looking for input on, because I think that on a whole, everyone's gotten the idea that structure shooting's bad, that this is bad and this is bad or whatever. But when you get a counterpoint that says, well, let's do something like system control, and if you have 100 dudes on this control point, like it's fucking capture the flag, then everything's then you can control the system, and that would remove structure shooting or whatever. Like a lot of people have really that was a Jade Constantine idea, by the way. Yeah. A lot of people have really bad ideas about how to do these things, but I don't see a lot of good ideas. So I think that's something that I'd personally like to hear from you.
I mean, one of the biggest problems that I have with some aspects I thought of back in the day, one of the reforms that I thought would be a good reform for the SOF system was to have to keep POS Warfare but have it be towers, like Sov claiming towers on planets, such that you had like a reasonable limit. So like Sov fights in systems like One Victor Dash in Scalding Pass, which used to be a major strategic choke point back in the day. One Victor had only 5 moons, so whoever had 3 moons would win, and whoever had 2 moons was fucked. And we had a huge number of pivotal battles in that system. I liked the idea of so planetary POS warfare was something I thought was like a nice medium compared to like systems like J-L or what have you.
For a minute, that was actually what we proposed.
Yeah,
because we didn't have this concept of SBUs and shit. That was something
right.
Like
that was something
just
just like
and came out. Yeah.
Yeah. So like the now we have kind of like we have like Sov PTSD where it's this kind of thing where like they're like I like the idea of planetary like POS stuff as a nice medium ground, nice middle ground, but I pretty much until CCP comes out with a proposal that doesn't look really awful, I would prefer that they just stay away from it, because Dominion was supposed to fix a lot of the things about the Sov system, and now most wars, like back in the day in POS warfare, we would have these fights, like during the Great War, we would have fights that actually mattered about the Sov. People would slap fight over the towers because you had to fight over the towers, and it mattered. Nowadays, the Sov system in Dominion is a total sideshow to the actual process of prosecuting a Sov war. Like you look at Fountain, right? What's happening in Fountain? Is everybody grabbing for Sov? No, people are grabbing for moons, and people are grabbing for wins in fights to break morale. The way that most post-Dominion Sov fights have gone is one side crushes the morale of the other, they stop logging in, they take all the moons of the other guys such that the other guys don't make any money and can't reimburse their ships. And then once that's done, and the other side's will is broken, then the victor side goes, okay, we'll SBU everything, we'll take out all the stuff, and then they'll clean up all the Sov afterwards. That's pretty much how almost every major Sov war has gone since Dominion. And so basically the Sov system in Dominion is a thing that we do after the war has already been won. Not... like nobody actually gives a fuck about planting the flag, because hey, you planted a flag in a system, congratulations. If you're snapping a jump bridge, great. You want to snap Sov, great. But after a system has no Sov in it, it's like Sov 1 or Sov 2, why would you care about planting a flag there unless you're going to pay a fucking Sov bill? It's just it's about making the other guy not log in, making the other guy not fight for his empire. And having a Sov system which is an afterthought is just it's just bad game design.
What surprises me there is that you didn't mention Dust. I would have thought that you would want Dust to be incorporated in any future Sov changes.
Why?
I know you're a big fan of it. Both of you. I thought Dust, like that's your favorite game right now, right? Like you're missing out on Fleets and Eve to play Dust. You tell me this all the time.
Sometimes. I mean,
all day, every day, I'm dusting.
I have a fucking gun.
Dust is Revenant. Yeah, I'm glad that Dust is being like the one thing I will say about the Dust conquest system that is nice is that CCP appears to have in some areas learned their lesson from the Dominion thing, and they were testing out the Dust faction warfare system by implementing it only in faction warfare in Metropolis or wherever the fuck it is, rather than just like, hey guys, here's this new system, deal with it, and implementing it everywhere and having it be a disaster.
Yeah. Speaking of disasters, Z9PP, what are your thoughts in general as to how CCP handled that? And just
I'm gonna say the same thing about CCP helping in the same way that I've had to say to some of our fleet commanders who've been getting into trouble, and it's not just the one that you guys are thinking about. It's been several of them, which is please stop helping.
It was me.
Stop helping. Please stop helping. Like the what happened is that after Asakai, like they, I guess, I don't know, this isn't privileged information or anything, I'm just sort of talking out of my ass, but I think what happened is that Asakai got CCP a ton of PR, and they decided, and we saw this in the Fountain War when this kicked off, that and I saw this when I was in E3. This was like a part of their official like press schmoozing processes. Hey guys, Odyssey happened. There's this big war that's kicked off because of it. Blah blah blah. CCP wants more Asakais, and so in the middle of these fights in Fountain, for a couple of occasions now, CCP has been trying to like hot remap fights in progress, and on a couple of occasions now, it has gone very poorly with like nodes crashing or the fights just being thrown. Apparently, this was not the first time that this happened in Z9PP. Z9PP was, of course, the biggest and most high-profile version of that because 110 carriers would have died, and that's a shame. I'll just have to content myself with like 350 plus battleship kills and 22 other carrier kills.
Hey, wait! This is a no spin zone.
Sorry, spinning like a tornado. Spinning like a tornado.
Hold on, you can't be bringing facts into this discussion.
But I mean, Z9PP was a situation where, from a like strategic perspective, Test was in charge of what they were doing with reinforcement fleets rather than having NC. And In3 controlling things. And you had a situation on the field where you had 450 CFC Megathrons and only 100. They had at one point 220 rocks from the Test side of things, and those got gunned down to about 180. And the CFC had another 100 Megathrons to bring in on top of this trapped capital fleet. So basically, like it was like the sunk cost fallacy. Like instead of cutting their losses and just going like, well, we're going to lose all these carriers, whatever, they just put more and more battleships and more capitals into it. It's something that one of my fleet commanders referred to as Alamoing. Like these guys are Alamoing. They're just going to come in and suicide and go out in a blaze of glory. And then some fool in the ops department in CCP decided to help by trying to reinforce the node, and they typoed, and then there you go.
Can I interject something?
Sure.
Just really quick. Do you have a little bit of a logical fallacy, which isn't intentional on your part in any way, shape, or form? But what they're not trying to reinforce a node. What they're trying to do is move everything else away from that node. So they're not trying to help. They're not trying to fuck with the battle that's ongoing. They're trying to take everything where there's nothing going on away from it, which then gives more resource to that area where the thing is going on. Right. And what they did is they, for whatever reason, fucked up and
Q9PP
and when you move the thing where things are going on, as opposed to moving everything else away from it, whenever you move the thing, it knocks everyone off. So that's what happened. I'm not making excuses. Certainly, it's completely unacceptable for this to happen once, much less over and over again. I think CCP would say the same thing. But I do think that from a technical perspective, there's a distinction to be made between trying to fuck with the fight that's occurring as opposed to trying to fuck with everything else that's using the same resources as the fight that's occurring.
Right, and that is an important distinction. It's just one of those like, guys, stop helping or moving whatever rebalancing thing you're doing. Like if there's a massive because this is one of those situations where like PR had like the CCP PR marketing people had like one of these another like amazing fights handed to them on a platter, and then instead of being like a great hey come play our game thing, it was like welcome to EVE Online node being remapped. So I hope that if they have a thing where you can just typo and screw everything up, that in the future they'll have like a confirmation dialogue maybe added to the whatever ops thing they have. Where are you sure that you want to do Q9PP? This system does not exist, by the way. Please do not press this button or it will fuck up everything. So.
I'm not sure that that's necessarily a fix, because when you put up confirmation dialogues like that, people just click through them. But I think what perhaps might help in this regard is a little bit more of an understanding of what's going on and its impact. A guy that's sitting, in a particular position may not have any idea what the fuck is space fight even means or what's going on there. He's getting a request to do something, and he's just like, okay, I'm going to push these buttons and move on. And if he makes a little bit of a mistake, he may or may not understand the gravity of what that mistake is. And for it to happen once, it's cool. For it to happen over and over and over again is not. So I think what needs to happen is perhaps a little bit of a, like if it was me, if I was running operations at CCP, what I would do is I would sit back and I would say, look, we really need to review what the process for both making these requests and fulfilling these requests are, and what kind of checks and balances and approvals need to go through that. Maybe having more than one set of eyes on the request in the first place. I mean, for something this major, for the idea that what was said was that a request was made and things were reversed on the request, maybe more than one person should have looked at that request. Like that's how things work in the security world. Like I don't just look at everything and magic happens. Like there's layers of approvals and sign-offs and things that go on there. And CCP in and of itself, or a lot of companies, actually gaming companies, are very oh Christ, brain left the station. They're against. There's a just a corporate structure that's kind of finds any kind of bureaucracy anathema, and really bureaucracy exists because it works in some cases, and in this particular case, having more eyes on the thing may have prevented something like that from happening, and maybe that's what they need to sit back and look at. How do we request these types of things? Who can request them? And then when they're requested by valid parties who are doing it, how many eyes need to review the request and approve it before it actually happens? I think that's
Well
a little more
said,
pertinent than any kind of fucking pop-up dialogue that somebody's just going to click through.
Well said. Well done. You need a drink after that rant.
I'm drying out.
Why is that?
All that season.
All right, so
I think my beer is empty too. Yeah.
we're gonna take just probably 2 more questions then. Real quick, what are your thoughts on the fact that Harmless's question is why is no one seriously allying with any of the Russian alliances? Why aren't the Russians more engaged, I guess, in the greater scheme of things right now?
Well, I would say that probably because of the locality of their conflicts. The Russians have historically inhabited, with the exception of the Russians who are in Gunstorm Federation, because we actually have a pretty substantial crew of Russians in our alliance. The Russians in Solar Fleet, in Red Alliance, and in Darkness of Despair, and those entities are on the eastern half of the galaxy, and they've historically been there. Legion of Death is also fighting in the eastern half of the galaxy against Solar Fleet, because Legion of Death has a huge grudge against Solar Fleet and vice versa. So in terms of people allying with them, like most of the English-speaking alliances are involved in the Fountain War right now, with the exception of Dinner Squadron, which is fighting against Darkness of Despair, who are Russian. So you see that the Russians will often ally with each other and fight against anybody in that territory. It's not like people have something against them. It's just that the way that the strategic focus is right now is there's the Fountain War in the southeast and in the southwest, and then there's Darkness of Despair in the southeast, and that's sort of bleeding into the N3 solar thing. So it's not some sort of anti-Russian conspiracy. Basically, it's just geography.
All right, and then I guess one last question then, and I guess for both of you actually, because one of you actually used to work there, is what are your thoughts on CCP hiring Sean Decker, the former EA guy and DICE guy?
I don't know him. I couldn't comment on that.
Well, more
I don't
like,
know
what do you
who
think
he
that
is
that...
or what he does.
Okay, well then you're terrible. What do
No,
you
I
think
agree.
that
I agree with the idea that it's a relevant position, but I don't know anything about that guy, so I can't judge him.
Well, a little bit of background on him is he used to work at DICE, so he's heavily involved in Battlefield, and then
Sure. And he did some shit for Play for Free or whatever and was doing microtransaction shit for EA. That doesn't tell me anything about him. I didn't interview him. I don't know what he does. I don't know who he is as a person.
You just are useless. What do you think that says about CCP that they're looking to bring in somebody with that kind of background into that position? There's some, I don't know, expectation, but from the players anyways, they thought that maybe John Lander would move up into there prior to him being named the mobile guy, move into that position. What do you guys think that says about CCP and the direction that they want to go? And
well,
are they trying to save dust?
I interviewed John Lander at FanFest, and then we ended up not actually writing it up because it was a huge, long interview, and then, yeah, because we're bad. Sorry, John. But my understanding of things is that I'm not sure. Do you know if Sean Decker is moving, or what if this guy's name is? Is he moving to Iceland?
I don't believe he is. I think he's in Atlanta.
Okay, well, never mind.
The Iceland of America.
Yeah, look, the fact is that the industry is going towards microtransactions, and EVE players have a huge knee-jerk reaction against microtransactions for very good reasons because of the Incarna crisis. EVE is like the last subscription game. When I see CCP hiring a guy who was at DICE and doing all these shooter microtransaction-y things, I think to myself, is that an EVE guy? No, I think what's a game that CCP has that's in trouble that is a shooter that has its entire economy based around microtransactions? I think that he's probably going to be spending, I have no idea, my guess is rather than going, oh God, CCP hired a microtransaction guy, let's fucking shoot the Jita Monument, I think he's probably going to be working on Dust, and, good luck.
And it's a little difficult for me to comment on these particular things. Some of which because I'm a little too close to the situation, and some of which because I'd be restricted from doing so. But I will say, at a high level, it's what you should be doing is kind of take a look back and look at what the position is and what the company thought it needed, as opposed to trying to lump everything into an Eve Dust or a World of Darkness mold. I think that his hire doesn't necessarily mean they want to lump microtransactions into anything, but that they had at a high level, which is what this position is. This guy's not going to be walking from desk to desk going like, "How you doing, buddy?" patting people on the back and going, "Change that line of code over there, pal." Like, this is not this guy's job. He's sitting up in the ivory, up on fucking Mount Olympus, and his role is to, from a very high level, guide CCP as a company, not any individual title, but CCP as a company's production process. I'm not sure that his background necessarily. I'm sure that his background colors that or whatever else, but and he's certainly in a position to have an impact on overall vision and direction. But at the end of the day, whoever interviewed him or whatever had a role to fill. That role was vice president or whatever they're calling it of production, and they clearly felt there were some leadership qualities in this gentleman that filled that role. I think that everyone turning it into like it's about Eve or it's about Dust or it's about Watt or whatever else, it's just it's almost like Inquirer level reporting where you're just like everything needs to be fucking so fantastic. Oh, Batboy was spotted. Here he comes to poo on everybody. Like, in this particular case, it's fucking. This is just a guy that they hired to be a senior leader, and there was clearly qualities in him they liked. That's my opinion on the subject. The guy could be an asshole. I don't know anything about him.
Could be an asshole.
Could be the nicest guy ever. He could.
Yeah.
He could know Gandhi.
He could know Gandhi.
Who doesn't really?
He could know Gandhi. Okay, so one.
Civ 5.
You. So okay, so one last question, and that is, how important to you guys, as both being fairly influential in Nullsec, how important is knowing and understanding the depths of authors such as von Clausewitz and Sun Tzu? Damn it! I almost fucking made it too. Shit.
You know what? And on that topic, what is actually the Dunning-Kruger effect? I've been really curious.
We discussed this on the stream the other night when we all played Monaco.
I forget. I was pretty drunk.
I wasn't sure what the answer was. What is the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Oh god. Okay, so the Dunning-Kruger effect is this really difficult thing.
Really...
Type it into fucking Google.
We didn't really want to know.
Nobody gives a shit about Dunning-Kruger.
On that note, I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Really appreciate all the questions and the patience as we got through the first episode jitters. Hopefully in the future we won't be so terrible, but no guarantees.
No guarantees at all.
If you would like to watch future shows, Nullsec Power Hour obviously is one of them, but we also have monthly Dev Talk where we get somebody from CCP on and talk about the game a bit. Go ahead and follow the stream. It'll keep you updated as to when we go live. And pay attention to Twitter. Follow at the Mittani com, because social media is great. And the Mittani himself, and he'll probably tell everybody